Right, so welcome back to Adventures 82. It's been a while, so I thought I'd do a Bits About Town video. So, not much more of an intro to this one than that, so let's get into this one then. So, to me in the future, part one, I guess. Right, so part one, we're on the junction between Montpinel, which is this road behind me, and Montmille, which is the one that's now currently going off to my right hand side. And you'll see what is now some flats. Well, if you notice the walls, you'll see they naturally curve inwards, and then there's like this little section in the centre that's now palm trees, and I think some sort of lily. I'm not a gardener, well, not that much of a gardener, so I wouldn't know, but that was the main entrance to what was once upon a time Ching's cigarette factory. The cigarette factory originally started in 1911 roughly as a smaller factory down in Burrard Street, and then it expanded and it moved up to here. I'm not sure exactly when, but definitely by like the late 50s and mid 60s, Ching's factory was definitely here. That was then taken over in 1971 by the post office, who used this then as their headquarters until 1997, when they moved into their purpose-built headquarters, which are now down in Rue de Pré. And the building, like every other old building in Jersey, was in fact demolished and turned into flats. There's no difference to bloody hotels, is it? Right, so number two. I apologise for the part one being so short, but one, it was really cold. Two, I wasn't sure exactly how good the sound was. And three, what I did forget to mention was, if any of you have memories of Ching's factory, because it was gone by the time I was born, being 1982, and the post office took over in 71. It would be really interesting if you could put it in the comments below, because anything new that I can learn about the Ching's cigarette factory, because facts are rare on the ground for it, would be really quite handy. I digress. To part two. Now behind me you see more flats. It's becoming a theme. I promise I won't show you flats for the whole video, I do promise. But this is the Cedars, if you're familiar with the island, and if you're not, now you know. Now when they came to build the lovely tunnel that we have here, because before they built the tunnel just over here that we have that goes underneath, and through the rock to the other side, and they built Route de Four in the process in 1967. That was completed. But before they built all that, there was a lovely little Gothic house up here, and it was decided when they decided to build the tunnel that this Gothic house should be demolished for safety reasons. So they went and they slapped the house down. Not literally slapped it down, obviously, because it's built more solid than that. It was Gothic, for God's sakes. It was the last house of its kind in the island, but for safety reasons, whilst we're building the tunnel, they decided to demolish it because they said it would be damaged anyway beyond repair. So this Gothic house was then demolished and forgotten about. They built the tunnel, which was brilliant, and they found out afterwards there was no ground subsidence or disturbance of the ground where the Gothic house was at all whilst the tunnel was being built. So they didn't need to knock it down, and the last surviving Gothic house in Jersey was demolished for no bloody reason. So, of course, this is 1967, and it was at this point in the late 60s, early 70s, where the states were very much trying to keep up with the amount of people that were moving into the island, because we're in the height now of tourism. People are moving into the island. Hospitality needs to be accounted for, and people are moving over here because there's opportunities for Channel Island gift shops, they were a chain in the 80s. My God, I'm showing my age now, right? And so this then meant that they were building housing estates everywhere, like the one I grew up on, the Skye Estate, Le Marais, Nicholson Park. Most of these, by the way, now don't exist because they've been erased from time. They decided that because this land actually wasn't damaged at all, they would build a housing estate on it. So this is one of only 3 sets of tower blocks that were built in the island of Jersey. Unfortunately, all 3 were built in the east of the island. So you have the Cedars, which replaced the Gothic House. I'd much rather look at the Gothic House. You've got the one that you can see just further down there, which is Le Colette, and then you've got the Le Marais high-rise flats. And like most blocks of flats built in the 60s, they're not particularly pretty to look at. And the lifts broke all the time, and they put modern lifts in, and they still break all the time. The only upside to the Cedars was it gave you a nice shortcut up to the Fort Regent. But yeah, was a very nice Gothic house, got demolished because of the tunnel, and then we got more flats. I promise part 3 hasn't got any flats in it. Erica, we need to go this way. Really? Right, okay. So this isn't really history as in Jersey history, this is more family history, but we're currently going down a road and you can see it's quite steep. It's called College Hill. And my grandfather, this is I would imagine probably early 1920s when he was going to school, went down this hill on a bike with no brakes and completely missed the corner which I've just gone round and went straight into the pool and broke his nose. When he got home, my grandfather was less concerned about my grandfather's nose or the fact that his friend had to make sure he was okay, as he was about the fact my grandfather had ruined the bike that he had to work for in his butchers to earn the money to buy. So then my grandfather ended up being punished for breaking his own nose by having to do overtime in his father's butcher to make up the money to replace his bike. Only in the early 1900s was somebody have been that strict. These days, we're like, oh my poor darling, your nose, and rush you to A&E. Not then. Right, we are now in the not so pretty part of town. Whilst we're here, this is a bit of B-roll. I don't normally do lengthy B-roll. You can see how quick they got rid of the Apollo Hotel that we filmed in Lost Hotels Part 4, I think. That's gone.
And how quick they're building the Mayfair.
Yeah, and then the former site of the Mayfair is going up really quickly now. That's going to be flats again soon. I'm quite interestingly, and what I am looking forward to more than anything else, is showing you the update, if I get a chance to before I leave, on the Jersey Brewery, because Andium have indeed now gotten hold of it, and they are indeed keeping the frontage of it on their flats. So as long as I'm here, I'll keep you posted on how that one works out. But for now, I'm going to go find somewhere to park, and I'm going to show you part 3 of this video. Bye. Right, so we're now in French Lane, which is most people these days will know as Hillgrove Street. French Lane is a local term for it. The reason being is that back in the early 20th century, when farming was still a very big part of the island, and going into, I believe, the 50s and 60s, you would get a lot of French workers that would come over seasonally in the summer to work on the farms picking potatoes and other kind of general seasonal farm work. But all these French workers would obviously come together on a boat, and they'd all gather in this little lane here at this specific pub, which was called the Prince of Wales, until recently. You can see where they've taken the sign off the wall. And they would all gather here, and they would drink their Jersey cider, because the farmers would pay them partially money, partially in cider. And so they gather here, and they drink their Jersey cider, get very overly drunk. I'm sure wake up with a horrendous headache in the morning. So my grandfather used to say that no cider in the world could knock a man for 6 quart like Jersey cider. And yeah, so they always used to congregate here, and in the evenings you would come down here and you'd find all these drunken French people who drunk too much Jersey brandy, apple brandy and cider. So that's why it's called French Lane. Interestingly, you can see it's cobbled. These are the original cobbles, but you'll see that they're the same height as the curb. The reason for that is because back in the early 2000s, the states attempted to remove the cobbles on here, and they paved it. And local people generally weren't impressed at one of the few cobble streets left in St Helier having its cobbles removed for some, what was really, if I'm honest, very ugly paving. So rather than remove the paving that would cost them more money, they put the cobbles back on top of the paving, which is why it's now the same height as the pavement. I suppose in the grand scheme of things it's worked out better that way, because in a world with mobility scooters and ease of access for people, it means there's no curb reed to go up and down on, so it probably has worked out quite well for them. But I'm pretty sure that isn't why they did it. I'm pretty sure it was to save some cash. Anyway, part 4, and this one is a lost hotel, but it's a lost hotel that most people don't even know existed. So onwards and upwards. Right, as I'm going down French Lane, I'm at the back of what's now, as you can see, Monsoon. I don't think it's even Monsoon anymore. I don't know what the hell it is. It's what I would used to know as Queensway House anyway, but this section here, you can see there's a blocked off door. This is where there used to be one of the entrances to a toy shop if you grew up over here in the 70s, 80s and the early 90s, called 101 Toys, because you had this end here which was all the grown-up toys, and then just over here, past where that main entrance is there with the blue sign above it, on the other side there, used to be where they had like the preschool toys. If you remember that, let me know. But anyway, part 4. Yeah. Right, so we're now on the main street in St Helier, we're on King Street. The original name for the road is Rue de Derrière, because it wasn't actually originally Jersey's main street. Jersey's original main street was in fact Broad Street, which is the road just through there. This was classed as a back street, which is what Rue de Derrière translates into, the back street, or the back road. But it's now obviously become far more prominent than Broad Street has, which means there's a few things that have happened over the years, changes, etc. that have happened. One of them being that what's now currently Marks and Spencer's used to be a place called Briggs the Toy Shop, which is now currently surrounded by scaffolding. Another one is this old cider press where they used to squash cider in the middle of the street. And the more interesting one is just behind us over here, which is now Boots the Chemist, which, if you follow me, just here. And you can still tell actually, if you look above where the signage is, it's quite ornate. As you can see, still showing signs of its original early 1900s heritage. Because in the early 1900s until 1927, this was a site of the Crystal Palace Hotel. No one's sure exactly when in the early 1900s it turned into a hotel, but it turned into a hotel in the early 1900s, stopped being a hotel in 1927, and that's when it was turned into a bar and restaurant with the same name. Prior to that, it was called Café de Paris. And before that, the Parisian Cafe, which was some of this was altered when it turned into a hotel, but the actual building itself has actually been here since the early 1900s as a cafe. But clearly with French roots, because you notice all the names are in French. I'd say the Crystal Palace Hotel, see, it was written in French. It was actually, what's it? Crystal de Palais or something. I'm not good at French, I apologise. But yeah, you can also see here, if you look, you've got what's now the card factory there. You can see here the Body Shop, Allison's and WH Smith's, well, one half of WH Smith's. All three of those buildings there, they're white, blue, yellow. They have the same thing there, and that was another hotel. And you look further down, which we shall take you down to see this is ours actually, because I probably won't get another chance to show you this. So come with me, come on Erica, chop chop. Of all the times for me to film on King Street, I had to choose, what's it, 3 weeks now till Christmas? That said, it would have been busier if I'd have done this in the Christmas when I was a kid, so there you go. Right, so this crucifix here, this was built there. That was built to one of the kings. But what I find more interesting is the fact that once upon a time, there was in fact an archway here to commemorate the marriage of George V. The arch was, however, promptly removed, which is unfortunate. But I'll put a picture up for you now, show you that archway. But it was a nice little archway. It's a shame it's been demolished. Also, this area is called Charing Cross, not that you'd know it now, because the road used to go in a crisscross. But the road that used to cross off and then come down here, which is now King Street, obviously has been precincted. And the road that goes off the other side there of what's now a Santander Work Cafe has also been precincted. And the bit that is still road, which is the other end of Broad Street that goes into another street called York Street, is now off limits unless you're delivering. And that's only till 11 o'clock in the morning. And then no one's allowed down there. And I don't know why. Because most of the buildings there now have been demolished or vacated, so nobody's there. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this whole, well, what do you call it? Tour de St Helier Part 3. So I hope you enjoyed it. In the meantime, I'm off to try and warm up, as is Erica, because she's absolutely frozen. And I'll see you next time when we'll be telling you a slightly more different story, but it is definitely a story. Bye.
Years later, he says, then I don't care. Said I've got
Right, so we're now on the main street of St Helier. I'm saying that. Shall I check my sound is on? It is, see, look, it's on. Right, yeah.